It'll look like rain and around a bend, come up the train and on the bend. What old Bill Jones, he's a good old hobo, but trying to get home, trying to get home, trying to get home. Good old hobo, but trying to get home. Way down in Georgia, down on a tramp, where the road's getting muddy and the leaves are getting damp. Gonna find a freight train to leave this town, 'cause they don't like the hobos hanging around, hanging around, hanging around. No, they don't like the hobos hanging around. Old Bill Jones said before he died, and fixed the rails so the bumps can ride. And if they ride, let them ride the ride. Put all the trust in the hands of God, hands of God, hands of God. Put all the trust in the hands of God. Old Bill Jones said before he died, there's just two trains I'd like to ride. And the brakeman said, what could they be? It's the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe, Santa Fe, Santa Fe. Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe. As you see, we got a C chord going on there. Grab that right there and do some standard stuff as far as what we've been playing these last couple weeks. So I'm just going to do a boom, chick. So that's just the thumb on the open fourth, plucking up with the index and middle there on the first two strings, and then we have this little bitty roll. And I think that's the first, if you look at that whole measure as one kind of compound rhythmic unit, that's probably the first one I showed you. Just a boom chick followed by a little roll. Alright. That takes us to measure 2, where we're still just holding this C chord and doing our straight old plucking there. So measure 1 and 2 together. Cool thing is measures 3 and 4, we're basically just going to do the same thing, but this time it's over a G7 chord. We've been playing the regular old G chord, just fretting that second fret on the 4th string, the rest open. Most of the time we've been doing that. We're going to go back to this one, which is a pretty common chord in this tuning. The G7 shape here, we're adding in that 3rd fret on the 1st string. We're using our ring finger to do so. Otherwise, we're doing almost exactly the same thing we did in the first 2 measures as far as our right hand goes. The only difference is we're starting that boom note on the 3rd string on the 3rd measure here. So that'll look and sound like this. 3rd measure. Boom note on the 3rd, upstroke chick, and we're doing our little roll. So for the subsequent measure there, measure 4, we just go boom, chick, boom, chick. So if we do measure 3 and 4 together, let me do those 2 together for you once more, but this time I'll slow it down. Alright, so hopefully you're catching on to this general pattern we have going so far. It's a boom, chick, roll, boom, chick, right? So the first 2 measures. Second 2 measures. So you shouldn't be too surprised when we get to measure number 5. We're going back to the C chord. And we're going to start with a boom, chick, right? Same old thing. So you can do entire Charlie Poole style songs just using, well, you could just use boom chick if you wanted. Early one morning, Lord, it looked like rain, and around a bend come a passenger train, and on the train was old Bill Jones, got a hobo and he trying to get home, trying to get home, trying to get home. Good old hobo buddy trying to get home. There's that whole song there, just boom, pinch, and the only thing I did was alternate the booms between the third and fourth strings. Nothing else going on there. And that's still a great accompaniment. Nothing wrong with that. We've just kind of picked up in media res here. We're kind of already adding in some little rolls and some walk-ups, etc. So that's the next thing you would do if you were starting from that very basic approach, is you would start adding some walk-ups to your basic boom chick. And of course, we're going to do all three of those things integrated: boom, chick, plus some little rolls, plus some walk-ups. So anyway, measure 5, you see we go boom, chick, and then we're doing some straight boom notes. So it's going to be a bit of a walk and a connector lick here. So measure 5. And that gets us ready for measure 6, where we jump up to our F chord up here. This is that shape that I told you in the beginning of our Charlie Poole studies you're going to see a whole lot. I finger this in a couple different ways, but lately I've been trying to get in the habit of fingering it this way. The bar with the first finger, second finger getting the 6th fret note there, and then the pinky. I'm leaving the ring finger out of it. If I get in the habit of doing that, then I have this ring finger available if I need to grab any other notes up above the bar. So that's something I'm trying to get in the habit of. You might want to follow me on that. Anyway, we're up here on this F chord, and here we're just doing a boom, chick, boom, chick. Those boom notes falling on the 4th and 3rd strings, respectively. So if I back up and play you measure 5 and measure 6. Alright, so just a quick C chord to a quick F chord, then we're back to a C. What I'm choosing to do here is go into this C bar chord right here that we play like so. And you may remember when we're playing our bar chords in this tuning, we just borrow those first 3 strings, and if we want to play the 4th string, we grab the note 2 frets up. So that would be your full C bar chord here. And that's a very movable shape. But since we're in the key of C with that low open C string, I'm going to take advantage of that and just play that open 4th string against the fretted bar here. So measure 7 will sound like that and look like that. Let me play it for you a little slower. That same kind of roll we've been doing so far, just a forward kind of roll here. Thumb, finger, thumb, finger. All right. That's measure 7, and then we jump down to our G chord, a regular old G this time, for half a measure, and then right back to that home C chord to finish out that measure. And really that finishes out the kind of main part of the verse before we jump up to the little refrain. So if I back up here and I'll play measure 7 and 8 together, I think most of these sound are most beneficial to kind of put into context and group together like this. So here's 7 and 8 together. And as I mentioned, that kind of is the first little section of the song form, and then we're kind of rolling up to the part that I would just call the refrain. Hanging around, don't like the hobos hanging around. So that's where we walk up. Should be a familiar walk up to you if you've been following these Charlie Poole lessons, walking up to that F chord. Alright, so it's just boom, 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 chick. And we talked about this before, but you can either use a single finger, since we're moving up to bring a whole bar chord up with this lead finger. Our index finger is going to be at the base of the bar chord. You can just use that for all your transition notes, or you can play more traditionally as far as positioning goes with your left fingers. And then just shift when you need to. It's up to you. A lot of people who play in this style like to just kind of drag that single finger all the way up. Anyhow, that's the measure 9. Now that we're holding this F chord up here, we've moved into it. Measure 10, we're just holding that and doing some roll. Again, nothing new here. We're just doing the same roll we've been doing throughout this arrangement so far. 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, chick. So I guess in keeping with my my habits so far, I'll back up and play measures 9 and 10 together. And now we do a nice little walk down. Don't let this one scare you. It's a bigger stretch than I usually demand of you. But in this tuning, sometimes you might need to make some stretches like this to get particular walk up and connector notes. And when you're up here on the neck, it's a little more condensed. It's not that bad. But you definitely want to follow my fingering suggestions here. You do your that 5th fret note there on the 3rd string that measure 11 starts out with. You want to play with your index, and you should already have that there in position. Grab the 9th fret on the 4th string with your pinky, then use your 3rd, your ring finger, for the 7th fret. And notice I didn't really remove this bar up here that I had. I already had this bar from the F chord. All I do is shift the bar over. And then I grab the pinky note, then the 7th fret note, and look, now I've transitioned to that C chord. Fretting the 7th, 5th, 5th, 5th. Okay, so I'll back up again. 9th through 11th measures. Alright, and now that we're holding this C chord shape here, I'll do a very familiar right hand pattern. Right, that little forward roll thing. Now as we move on to the next few measures here, move on to measure 13, this is where we kind of turn the whole song around. We're wrapping the whole song form up, and we're just going to go 1 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord, basically. But we're already here on the 1 chord. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to open up that 4th string again, that low C note. I'm going to leave the rest of the bar sitting there on the 5th fret on the first 3 strings. I'm going to play this little roll. This is the same as measure 7. Well, actually, let me back up because I misspoke at you there. So measure 12, we have measure 13 starts out, we're still here. We do another boom, chick, Just this boom starts on the third string note. Then we do some familiar stuff. Let me pull my tab up correctly. I was kind of doing that from memory, which is why I lied to you. Excuse me. So the second half of measure 13, now we're doing some familiar stuff. Remember, we have that 4th string open, doing this roll here. String wise on the right hand, it's 4, 2, 3, 1. We keep going into measure 14. All right. So measure 13 into halfway through measure 14 should make sense. All right, so some of these ideas are crossing over the bar lines, the measures, and we talked about this in the very first Charlie Poole lesson. This will make your measure by measure study a little interesting. You'll see some stuff kind of shifted here and there when you analyze it on the page. And if you're breaking it up measure by measure like this, it can sometimes sound a little out of context when you just play little isolated parts, but it makes sense when you put them all together. That's part of the reason I've been backing up and grouping these together, so you can hopefully hear the musical context even at these slower tempos. Let me go ahead and play you measure 13 all the way through the end of measure 14, since I stopped in the middle. So you see there, the second half of measure 14, we're jumping down to that G chord. And hopefully you can hear there musically what's being kind of begged for there is a resolution back to the 1 chord. And that's exactly what we get in measure 15. So measure 15 and measure 16, I believe, are the same as your first 2 measures of this tune. So we shouldn't have to dwell on them too long. So I'll play the whole thing for you one more time. I'll play it slowly, and I'll look at the tab while I do so I can try to match it just the way it's written in the tab. 1, 2, 3. Early one morning, well, it looked like rain along the bend come a passenger train. On the train was old Bill Jones, good old hobo, but he's trying to get